Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. It is Minty Bets here with Teddy Covers. Hope everyone is doing well. How are you, though, Teddy?
I'm doing okay. You know what I'm excited about, Minty? There's two things I'm legitimately excited about, which I haven't been able to say for the last 4 months. You know, what am I excited about? I'm excited about maybe there'll be a game scheduled. No. Now we have like games, point spreads. There is an end to this team sports drought, and we can see it. And it's not that far away. You know, July 23rd, July 30th, MLB, NBA is supposed to start. So the fact that we can actually see the end of the tunnel, you know, is great. The other thing I'm excited about is that I'm starting a new show, you know, a daily sports central for gamblers. I'll be doing it with Prez Michaels every day, Monday through Friday here on the WagerTalk and Sports Memo YouTube channels. That'll be starting. We don't have an exact start date. Towards the end of the month, when sports start, will start. So I'm excited working on a new show. That's always fun. And it's, I think it's going to be really good. You know, I want, you know, the goal is for this to be the definitive sports central for bettors every single day. We're going to have bookmakers on every day. We're going to have handicappers on every day. We're going to break down games, and we're going to do it in a fashion, you know, with Prez along, you know, that it won't be straight sports and point spreads entirely. But the goal is to have enough entertainment and enough information that we can attract a wide audience. So I'm really looking forward to that. So that's what I'm thinking about today. But the other weird thing about today, Minty, and this is the first 101 that I've ever done with you or anyone that I think that I have no notes. I have no notes. It's all just questions and answers, and I'll do the best I can. Whatever random questions pop up, let's see what we can do.
So
let's do it. I'll be talking off the cuff, and hopefully my answers won't be completely wrong.
No, not at all. All right, so let's say hi to David. I believe this is David from Israel joining us, if I'm not mistaken, or it's just David from here. And also Shane from Dublin. Thanks, guys, for joining us today. We've received questions from Instagram and Twitter, and then we have Teddy answering it today. So we'll go through that quickly, and then at the end of the show, we're going to talk about the latest sports betting news, because a lot of things have been happening with BetMGM, Caesars, PointsBet. So we would like to talk a little bit about that and get Teddy's thoughts and maybe a little bit of my thoughts too. So Teddy, are we ready?
Ready as I'm going to be. we'll find out.
All right. So Brian, hello to you as well. Thank you for joining us. So from Instagram, I'm sorry if I pronounce anyone's username wrong. There's going to be bound to be one that I can't pronounce. But from It's Only Permanent on Instagram, is this the year to bet true long shots for MVP, because some prominent players may end up testing positive for COVID and miss a few weeks? I think this applies for MLB and NBA, NFL. So Teddy, what do you think? Long shots for MVP?
Sure. I mean, really, if you're talking about MVP betting at this stage, you're looking at perhaps MLB or NFL. And I'm going to be flat out straight honest with you. It's not a bet that I ever make. Ever.
Okay.
This is why. Okay. Even if there is, I'll start with the reason why I don't make that bet. Okay. The bets where they list 50 players. Okay. That's not minus 110. Those are usually minus 150, minus 180, minus $2. The house takeout on those bets is enormous. So unless you go into the start of the season saying, I know this team's going to win the most games, and this is their quarterback, and he's the MVP. Oh, and I can get him at 60-1 right now. Unless you have one of those type of scenarios that really couldn't set up any better than it possibly than it is. Maybe, you know, if you caught on the Rams when Kurt Warner took over for Trent Green in training camp, you know, that type of thing. You say, yeah, sure. But MVPs tend to be won by statistical dominance on elite teams. Certainly when you talk about NFL, it's basically the best quarterback award with occasionally the best running back wins. So when you start talking about long shots for the NFL MVP, well, you need someone's going to put up monster stats and have a monster season that no one's paying attention to right now. You got that guy? I don't have that guy. And when I'm doing that, and again, this is a bet that's not going to get paid until the end of the season, or I'm locking my money up I'm locking it up in a situation where the books are getting the best of the number, not me. It's just not a bet that it's not something that I'm spending time trying to find that guy. If you do, and if you again, if you're sitting there and you're doing your handicap and you're like, wow, I'm looking at the Phillies and if the Phillies win and Bryce Harper's got to win MVP and I want Harper and I can get him at whatever he is right now, 20-1 or whatever, some reasonable range. Say, all right, well, there's a lot of ifs in that equation, but if that's your handicap, I'm not going to talk you out of it. For me, betting MVP, again, it's not a bet that I ever make. And when it comes to do we know who's going to, in the increased uncertainty about COVID for 2020, does that make it more likely there's going to be a long shot?
Mm-hmm.
A little bit, but not a lot. If the 10 best players all get COVID, the 11th best player is going to win the MVP, So when you start looking 30 and 50 down at some of the real long shots, it's still only one of those, and this is the biggest issue of all the bets you make on those. Doesn't matter. This is the same thing. The same issue I have with who's going to win the national championship in college or who's going to win. This is why I don't bet these type of futures very often. One bet is going to win. Every other team that you could bet on or person you're going to bet on is going to lose. Okay.
Right. Exactly.
So they list 100 candidates. 99 of them are going to lose, and one of them is going to win. It's hard to pick that needle in the haystack. It really is. So I'm sorry I didn't answer your question properly and give you names, but it's not a bet I'm looking to make.
Okay. Do you ever bet on those props, like who's going to hit the most home runs or who's going to score the most runs or most strikeouts as pitcher? Do you ever make those prop bets or no?
I'm trying to think. I'm sure I have.
Right.
But
they're not really interesting because you just want to bet on something before the season starts, and then you want the bragging rights at the end of the season to be like, I called Mike Trout to hit the most home runs, Oh,
I could care less about that. All I want is the money. Honestly, the bragging rights are nice, they're fun and all that. All I want is the money,
Okay.
That's my job, is to find the money. It's not to brag. And to advise my clients on how to find the money and not to brag about it. So it's not something where I'm and again, when you talk about win the RBI title or the home run title, when I talk about the only way I'm making one of those bets is if doing my preseason research on each team, somebody stands out like a sore thumb. And he's like, wow, they're going to throw the deep ball over and over this year to Aldrich Robinson or whoever. It doesn't matter. They're going to throw, that's their game plan. This guy could catch 20 touchdown passes. Let's take a shot here. But then you're like, oh, he's a wide receiver. Forget it, because wide receivers don't win the NBA in the NFL. So,
true. Okay.
Yeah.
That answered it. All right. Shane, I know you have a question for NFL. I'm going to get through MLB first and then NBA and then get to NFL. I promise it'll be quick. So the next question is by Sharpest Whale on Instagram. Or Twitter, whichever. Will the shortened MLB season, not many off day and less travel, make MLB overs or unders more attractive this season?
So it's a really interesting question, and thanks for the question. And it actually, I say I didn't take any notes. I did look at the questions and think about them. And this is one I'm like, what's the, how do you change that? So in my mind, let's start with this. Travel. When you're flying East Coast to West Coast, those tend to be good for unders. All right, the travel spots, especially, team travels back after a West Coast game. They play early on Monday or they play Monday night, doesn't matter. Those Monday games can be under machines, given those situations. So the lack of travel, the lack of as much travel, I think benefits hitters who in theory would be fresher.
Okay.
But when it comes, for me, betting MLB totals is about three things. One is riding streaks. Okay. Two is betting against bad bullpens. And three is betting on hot lineups. Okay. The bad bullpens with fewer days off could get wrecked.
Okay.
And I'm going to be absolutely looking for teams that have bullpen problems coming in. And now, guess what? You have 4 days off over the next 2 months to get you guys a little extra rest. And the bullpen's being, churned out, 5 relievers tonight, 6 relievers tomorrow night. Oh, wow, the pen just threw 16 2/3 innings in this last series. So that's, good for overs. And the lack of travel, good for overs, in theory. The long flights, you're more tired, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that given the circumstances that we're looking at, initially, there's definitely a potential for runs being scored in bunches. That said, that first week could be all under machine. And I would love to see the first week where you think about the first week of April, the pitchers are ahead of the hitters. Coming out of this summer camp, the pitchers may well be ahead of hitters. So my dream scenario is the first week, a bunch of unders, and then all of a sudden we see some of the bullpen start to wear down early, some lineups start to find some form, and then we can cash some overs. So the answer is at various times both. But that's step by step how I would look to handicap the process. With MLB totals. And it's not a broader view, I'm only looking at bet overs or I'm only looking at bet unders. It's all circumstantial. That's the way MLB totals work, and that doesn't change in a post-COVID world.
Right. And then a question for me, with the designated hitter rule for the NL, is that going to, I was thinking overs as well. What are your thoughts on that?
Sure. Well, the markets are going to adjust for the DH. The days of 6.5s in the NL are, I doubt we'll see many of those this year. I would expect, and then from the people I've talked to, they're expecting NL's totals just because of the DH to be between a half run and a run higher on a game in, game out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. We will see higher totals in the NL. And again, the 6.5s are going to be, I don't know that we're going to see them this year. So, but that's something the markets will adjust a priori. Before we even get in, the markets will have adjusted for the DH. Whether they've adjusted enough or not, we don't know, but there will be an adjustment right from the get-go because the pitcher's not in and the hitter is.
I would imagine so. All right, same user, Sharpest Whale, wants to ask now, what teams in the NBA regular season games are you looking to fade? And I guess this question can tie into from Dan on Fire 816. What's the better bet, the NBA hot road teams or the NBA hot home teams with no crowd? So I guess answer the first one. In the NBA regular season, what games are you looking to fade, or teams, I guess?
So this much I know about the going into the NBA is that a lot of it we're not going to know. And I got a couple of really good bookmaker quotes talking about how their game plan is adjust on the fly.
Okay.
Because we're not going to know. And even I spent this whole time, we did how to handicap in a COVID world last week, and I spent all the time about beat writers. And then I read the rules about beat writers, and the beat writers ain't going to be there. All right, so the normal news sources that we get are going to be have limited access. They're not going to be in the locker room. That type of the closeness we get isn't going to be there. So we're going to have less information. And coming into the season, we're going to have a bunch of opinions, but in terms of hard data, basically none. So that 8 games that they're playing, I'm telling you right now, the markets are going to be all over the place. They're going to be moving up, moving down. This team's going to be hot. A team that plays bad in the first game, they're going to bet the crap out of them the second game. Teams I'm looking to bet on, I think Memphis is a team that is built for a strong return. And Memphis, they're fighting for a playoff spot. Everyone's saying New Orleans is going to get it. New Orleans is going to get it. Well, Memphis got to give it up for New Orleans to get it. And New Orleans is the team that people are hyped on. So I think that Memphis may offer a little bit of value. On the other end of the equation, a bet against team, I haven't liked anything I've read out of Indiana. I don't like anything I've read out of the Pacers so far. I don't like anything I've read out of the Jazz so far. So that's 2 teams. Again, we're still early in the process. Haven't seen them play. All I have is stuff that I'm reading. But on my list of what teams to worry about, I'll put it this way. I'm not betting the Pacers or the Jazz game 1. The other question was about the hot home. What is it? The hot road teams or the? Yes.
What's a better bet? The NBA hot road teams or the NBA hot home teams with no crowd?
I'm assuming that there is no home court advantage whatsoever. And I'm interested in the teams that were able to win games away from home without crowd support. We're able to do that. So I would think, in general, the hot road teams. All that said, OKC was the best road team in the NBA. Right? The Thunder, against the spread, they were monsters. I mean, the road dogs, I know no team was better than them as road dogs. And I think no team was better than them on the road for sure. I'm almost sure of it. OKC is a team that I would put them in the Indiana and Utah category of I'm not convinced they're going to come back the same way that they went in.
Okay.
So the Thunder are a team that, even though they fit into that category of a road team, I'm not looking to get on OKC from day one.
Okay. Interesting. I just want to say something real quick. So I heard from a source who I work for, not WagerTalk or Yahoo, someone else, that for press, you will have to, like, you know, as you go in for press for the hockey games or the basketball games, you go into the locker room, you interview the players, and you interview the coaches post-game in the conference room, okay? So now some places are doing Zoom meetings. So you get to stay in the press box, but you're doing Zoom meetings, interviewing the players and the coaches from the press box and from there. Is that going to be like universal now, you think?
I don't know if it's going to be universal.
Nationwide.
Sure. I think that's the way that it's going to be. That'll be a Zoom call. Now the question is, in a Zoom call circumstance, are you going to get the type of banter that sometimes gives you a little bit of behind the scenes knowledge that you don't necessarily, there's a little bit of, read between the lines. I don't know if we're going to get that info. Personally, I mean, my thought process for this is, I'm going to read because that's what I do. But I'm going to watch every game every night, and that's how it's going to be. Is you have to learn, and and for as much as I watched NBA before, I have to watch it more. You have to watch the pregame now. You have to watch the postgame now. This is where you're going to get your little tidbits, your info. So my plan is to watch. I'm going to watch my ass off. I'm going to, and that's and then not that it's any different from normal. Normally I'll watch games, 4 games, 4 nights a week, 5 nights a week, and given this situation, I'm going to really literally try to watch every game.
Right. Okay.
Because that's where you're going to get your info.
Super cool. All right. Don't get a butt cramp watching all those games. I want to give a shout out to Rico. Hi, Rico. Thanks for joining us. And Funny Times, who is active in the chat. Also, Shane said, Teddy Covers should set up a betting college course. We would never miss a day of class, Teddy. You should be a college professor. Yes.
I appreciate that. And it's, again, my mentor was Dave Malinsky, and his nickname was the Professor. They call him the Professor. Professor Wagstaff is what it was. It was a thing from a Groucho Marx, bit from way back in the day.
Before my time.
But the concept of I've been doing this a while. I appreciate the kudos. Thank you.
Thanks,
and
Dave.
Again, these betting 101s and betting 102s we've been doing. If we strung them together, we'd probably make a course out of it. So you can do that yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Shane had a question about NFL. What NFL team will be the highest scoring team in regular season? This is a 12-1 favorite market, so maybe you can take Dallas and the KC Chiefs. What NFL team will be the highest scoring team in the regular season?
Yeah, I would expect. I certainly wouldn't bet against Kansas City.
Yeah.
But when I'm talking about who's going to be the highest team for the year, the highest scoring team for the year. There are 2 pieces of the handicap there in my mind. One, you need an offense that's explosive, an offense that can get in the 50s, and in the NFL. That doesn't happen often in the NFL. And preferably, you can score on, you got playmakers on special teams. You can score on defense. You can score all kinds of different ways, like the best college teams have, where that at the end of the year, Clemson's going to be 50 points a game or close to it. In the NFL, no one's going to be 50 points a game. But you want that explosiveness on offense, and you want the ability perhaps to score on special teams and defense. You want a coach that doesn't settle for field goals, et cetera, et cetera. But you also want a team that is going to have to score in the second half and in the fourth quarter of these games. All right, You're up 28-0 at halftime every week. You're going to run the ball up the gut, and that'll be the game. And you're not going to be the highest scoring team. If you're up 28-24 at halftime every week, you're going to keep scoring in the second half, which is why I think Kansas City certainly stands out. I don't like the Cowboys' defense on paper. They certainly stand out. I don't like the Texans' defense on paper. I think that they have a potential to be a relatively high-scoring team, even without Hopkins. But the favorites there are the favorites for a reason.
Yeah.
I wouldn't talk you out of the Chiefs. I wouldn't talk you out of the Cowboys.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Next question is from, oh gosh, I don't know how to pronounce this. Academia Moneyline. So sorry. I'd like to hear about hedging. Hedging, Teddy. So do you ever hedge your bets, whether they be futures or bets made on like a baseball game earlier that day and then just live betting the other side? What are your thoughts on hedging bets?
It's an excellent question, and it's a broad question.
You okay?
So I'm going to start with I'm going to try to make two basic points here.
Okay.
One is I never want to turn a winner into a push by hedging.
Okay.
Okay. I'm -7 at halftime. I'm up 21-3. I'm -7 for the game. I'm up 21-3 at the break. Well, I feel pretty good about my -7. Looks like a winner.
Right.
Do I want to play for the middle and come back with the dog? Do I want to turn that and play for the, and potentially turn the win into a push? A lot of times I don't. I just want to take my win and move away, take my pot. And once in a while, your team's up 28-3, 21-3 at the break, or 28-3 in the third quarter with the Falcons, and you end up losing that bet. You go, oh my God, I should have hedged. But you can't let that eat you alive. It will happen sometimes. It's not going to happen a lot. So on a game in, game out basis, I'm not a big fan of hedging at halftime or hedging in game if I like my side.
Okay.
When it comes to future book wagers, I think it's important to hedge. Okay. Because now you're talking about the big payouts, And no, I'm not talking about if you're getting paid 3-1. You're not hedging off of that. But when you're, 20-1 and 50-1 and 100-1, and when you're getting into the longer shots and they're live in the postseason, that's when you start thinking about hedging and locking in some type of a profit. I've got 25-1 on whoever. They're a dog in the the conference finals. Maybe I'll lay something with the money line on the other team and lock in a profit either way. But once you start when you start putting yourself in multiple hedging, all right, well, people have, someone's got a 250-1, a 200-1 on a NCAA tournament long shot. Like, well, they made the tournament. Should I start hedging? It's like, no. Wait till they get, if you try to hedge something once, you're already cutting your profit significantly. Try to hedge it 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and even your 250-1 ticket ends up being worthless. Or not worthless, but not the big payout that it's supposed to.
Right. Okay. Got it. So
the bottom line is you want to have, in terms of hedging, you still want to have some gamble in you. It's not about, yes, you want to lock in a profit, but for the scores, you got to have a little, the big scores come when you have a little bit of gamble in you.
Okay. Got it. All right. Now, a question from Shaky12381. Did either of you make money off of Joey Chestnut? Did you bet the hot dog eating contest, Teddy? I would imagine not.
I did it, and I was kicking myself, which I don't know. I wasn't kicking myself that hard, but I'm like, all the intel was that in the air conditioning, it's going to be easy.
Yeah.
That was the end. It's not outside; it's inside. That's going to make a difference. And the Joey Chestnut quotes afterwards, when he cashed the over and set the record, were, it was inside. It was easy, and the fact there were fewer. Excuse me. Fewer contestants means that the hot dogs actually tasted better. They were better cooked.
Yes, that's what they said.
Yeah, it was that was his quote. But I didn't bet it. I didn't make any money off it. It's a small market. It's not a market that I get involved in year out. And I'm not. And again, at this stage, I've been content to let my bankroll sit and wait for the sports that I handicap to begin.
Right.
At the beginning. So no, I didn't make any money off Joey Chestnut. I hope you did. And kudos.
Yeah, kudos if you did. I did not bet it, but what I predicted was wrong. So next question from @goodfella8. I don't really like this question. Sorry. How much was the biggest bet Teddy ever won and lost? I don't like when people ask, like, how much did you make? How much did you bet? How much did you lose? It's like asking about financials, and I don't personally like it. So Teddy, feel free to answer if you'd like. If you don't want to answer, we'll just move on to the next question.
No, I felt like if I didn't answer, I'd be dodging the question, and it's not a question I'm scared of.
Okay.
So in general, Not in general. I'm a 3 and 4 figure bettor.
Okay.
I don't bet 5 figures. I've never bet 10 dimes in a game.
Yeah.
Haven't yet. I don't. Maybe there'll be a game that in the future that gets me there. But it hasn't happened any time in my career thus far. So I've never. I'm 3 and 4 figures are my wager sizes.
Okay.
And the biggest, and the worst part about it is I'm trying to think like what's the one time that one and I meant like the biggest scores I've had have been contest hits. Where wow, there's 20 dimes, there's 10 dimes, there's but the contest hits aren't the same as I've had 5-figure, I've had no shortage of 5-figure days. In terms of you have a big college football Saturday, you have a terrible college basketball Saturday. In terms of days, I've had 5-figure days. I've never made a 5-figure bet.
Okay, got it. Easy enough. I think mine was like the Nats to win the NL. It was 12-1. That was my biggest win. And my biggest loss was betting on the Falcons to win the Super Bowl against the Patriots. That was like, honestly, the worst day of my life. Sure.
Betting
on a team I already hated against a team that I hated.
And I had to come home and do a show that night. All right. After the Super Bowl, after I'm laughing up 28-3, ha ha. There's no. I'm like, can't relax, honey. There's no way. It's not going to happen. They have to get 2 more touchdowns and 2-point conversions, and then they got to cover in overtime. Relax, honey. And then I do a show that night. That was lit. I mean, when you say that's one of the worst nights, that was one of the worst days of my life. Was that Super Bowl? Absolutely. Yeah. I'll never forget that.
Yeah. Memories. But last year was great. All right, we have a question from YouTube from Face First. Okay, so the purpose of this gentleman or lady's question is to understand the likelihood of a sportsbook accepting a high dollar wager. The question is there a better chance for a sportsbook to accept a high dollar wager on an underdog bet compared to a favorite bet? Do they accept underdog bets all day, or what's your advice? This person usually bets UFC, but any answer for any sport will help.
So when it comes to high dollar wagers, that's entirely that comes down to the books themselves. Different books have different risk management and different acceptance of their liabilities. Some books don't want any liability. They want to win. They'd much rather have a little win every day than go for than have a big day and then a terrible day. So it really does depend on how the individual book approaches their own liability. But limits are limits. I mean, books will take up to their limit. And it doesn't matter if it's a favorite or underdog in theory. It should never be more.
Okay, so there's no book that's like, we'll accept more underdog bets than favorites. It's just depending on the book, depending on the limit.
Once you start getting above, once you start getting towards the limits, there's going to be some bookmaker ability to, yes, we want this wager. No, we don't want this wager.
Okay.
But that's all. If you want to go in and try to bet 50 nines on something, if you're betting, that's going to come down to how much liability the books are willing to have and whether they think you have a right side or a wrong side.
Okay.
A lot of times. But if you're betting limits, it's you're not going to run into those problems.
Okay. Next question is from JC Tafoya 88. What's the best software or app you use to track your bets and win percentage? Do you have any recommendations?
So I saw this question, and it's kind of a disappointing answer. My answer is I use a freaking Excel spreadsheet.
Okay.
I've always used an Excel spreadsheet, and that's what I use, and it's free. And how do I track it? You set up a little script and you track it. It's not hard to do. The software that's out there, there's a ton I see when I Google it, but I just can't name any off the top of my head. I don't know anyone that uses it.
I don't either.
I mean, I'm trying to think of like the professional bettors that I know. Mm-hmm. They track their own. They're not using there's not any software, a particular software that they're involved with that I can think of or that I know of. Certainly, nothing comes to mind. So I apologize for not having a better answer for you, but the answer is I don't use one, and I don't know other people that do. So there's not anyone that I'm comfortable recommending.
The only one that I know that people, like beginners and stuff, use is the Action Network. the Action Network app or whatever, you can track your bets and you can change which sports books and how the odds are as they move. So that's the only one I can think of that's pretty user friendly. And I don't know if it's free or not. Actually, I have never used it.
Yeah. But I mean, anything to do with Action Network costs. Action, they're a subscription-based model.
Yeah.
So I don't know that tool costs, but whatever. It's not a product that I can look at you in the eye and say I recommend that product. I don't.
Yeah.
Again, an Excel spreadsheet, your own spreadsheet can do anything that the other apps can do.
Yeah.
You can do it for.
Okie dokie.
And
next
it's easy.
question.
Boom, boom, boom. You just punch in your data instead of having to click down. And I mean, I remember one time I did a trial for one of them, and I'm like, dude, this takes 4 times as long for me to enter every game. And why would I do it? I mean, literally, I enter it takes me two seconds to enter a day's worth of bets on the spreadsheet. It doesn't take long at all.
Okay. All right. Next question is from, I think it's Get Lit 1981. Thoughts on hammering Texans plus 10.5 at KC week 1? I'm thinking Deshaun is going to be a nightmare for KC defense and hit Cooks and Fuller downfield. Any thoughts?
Get lit. Let's get lit. Texans Chiefs week 1. Well, again, we're still, we're 2 months out on this game.
Yeah.
We're seeing signs that the line is going to go down. Okay. The 10.5s are getting bought out. The sharper books are down to 10. Some of them are even at 9.5 already. So if you like the 10.5, I wouldn't hesitate to put it in your pocket. 2 things that I have to say. One is that these teams met in the playoffs last year, and it wasn't pretty if you had Houston.
Yes.
Which is playoff revenge, sure. But it's also KC was the way better team, and I'm not convinced that's different this year.
Okay.
The second factor, which is, and again, I'm not exclusively a trends and angles guy, but that Thursday night opener where the Super Bowl champ plays at home, I don't usually like to bet against the Super Bowl champ playing at home. I've had for that Thursday night game, and it's not every year, it's not every team, and and the Patriots mess up a lot of stats, but the history on that Thursday night opener with the Super Bowl champ's been pretty good for the Super Bowl champ. It's not a game. I'm not laying with Kansas City. I don't have the Chiefs side of that equation. It's just not. It's not a game that's certainly from a side perspective is on my radar right now. I will say it's not going to hurt you to lock in at the plus 10.5. I don't know that number's going to be there on game day.
Yeah. Okay. True. All right. Last question that we've got from Instagram or Twitter. Area 51 tailgate. Mizzou football win total over under 7.5. Teddy, what are your thoughts?
So I'm a Drinkwitz fan, but not this year. Any team that's going through a coaching change and coordinator changes in this offseason is at a legitimate disadvantage. And again, for college, I've done my first run through in college. I haven't sat down for 2 hours at work Missouri yet. I'm giving you and my thought process with that college is less likely to happen than the other sports. I'm confident we're going to see some NBA. I'm confident we're going to see some MLB. I'm confident we're going to see some NFL. And I've chosen to spend my time during this down period working on the sports where I'm confident something's going to happen at the end. I'm not confident we see college. I'm not.
Yeah.
And Missouri, again, the teams with new coach, new coordinator. I like Missouri's talent. I think they can be competitive, but I'm not going to ask them to win 8 games given the circumstances this offseason. I could only bet them under.
Okay. Good stuff. Let's move on, guys. We are going to talk about the latest sports betting news. And one of the big stories from 2 weeks ago, actually, is the whole BetMGM KBO parlay hitting maybe 2 weeks ago. So if you're unfamiliar with the story, basically a 10-team parlay was placed at like 2 a.m. at an MGM property at a self-serving kiosk after a game in that parlay had already started. So this was a start time error at the kiosk that the bettor was taking advantage of. They placed a couple $100 and it hit for a payout of a potential $137,000. It's pretty controversial because on the sportsbook side, it was an error on their part, yes, but it's well known it's against the rules to place a bet like that after your game has started that isn't offered in live betting. The other side of the story is the bettor side, where the bettor was able to take advantage of the system and they want their money. So I get it. But now an investigation has opened with Nevada Gaming so they could determine if the wagers were valid or not. So question, Teddy, will the casino have to pay that parlay out due to the error, or will the bettor be left with nothing and maybe at most the refund of ticket costs back to him? What are your thoughts, and what do you think will happen?
It's an interesting question. It's a fascinating scenario.
Yes.
I mean, because again, we're talking about, and no one is saying that the bettor was doing was right. Okay, on the right side of the moral equation. You know, I mean, you can say that if a bookmaker makes a mistake in this state, you know, in the state of Nevada. All right, I messed it up the last time. I can't say Nevada wrong. But in this state, when the books mess up, gaming commission tends to favor the bettor. You know,
okay. Oh, favor the bettor. Okay.
Yeah. They tend to. That has been not exclusively, but that has been the tendency. Is that when the books make a mistake. Now, when let's say there's a transfixing error. Okay, if you bet offshore and this team is supposed to be +7, they're supposed to be -7, but they have it posted at +7. Right, someone just entered it wrong.
Right.
The offshore book will cancel the wager.
Okay.
In Vegas, they usually give the bettor two choices. They're like, we'll give your money back, or we'll pay you this wager, or this wager will be good, but you'll never be able to bet here again. You know,
right. Okay.
For a couple $100 or for $1,000 for most bettors, if you come in and out of town, it's not worth it. For $250,000, it's a different story. Okay, that's this is the book screwed up because it's human error. The game started at 2 a.m. and no one took them down. The bettor went into the system and took advantage of the book screw up to the tune of $250,000.
Yep.
I can't say that though that I support. We can't do what we do if the books aren't on the up and up. Okay, we're a part. Even though we're enemies with the books, we're partners with the books.
Right.
Okay. If the books go under, and we'll talk about this in a minute, it's not good for bettors.
Okay.
So in this instance, where a guy who's making whatever, the overnight guy didn't, is making $12 an hour and he didn't click the switch, and now the book's out $250,000. I honestly think that the gaming commission has the right to, and maybe should, cancel those wagers.
I think so too.
It's a clear past posting scenario. This isn't the sting,
Yeah.
It's not about getting that guy and So even though the bettor, in theory, didn't do anything wrong, it's dubious. You're betting games, and it wasn't the 10-teamer. There were multiple bets on the 10-teamer that were involved in a game that had already started.
Yes, I heard about that too.
It wasn't just the side. It was, there were multiple bets included in that. And I believe it was multiple games that had already started.
Yes.
So, I'm not, we have to work together. We have to. And I don't want books kicking me out. I don't want them not welcoming my action. I don't want them making the regulation so onerous that it's a disaster. And some guy hit a nice little score. He made $250,000. He didn't deserve it. And I don't, I would not be surprised if the gaming commission rules against him in this spot. Okay. It's not a spot where the books are clearly trying to screw that. No, they're not trying to screw this guy.
Yeah,
this guy tried to screw them for $250,000, which is, that's a fair hit. That's not a little hit for and I don't, I'm not an angle shooter. I'm not the guy that's going to go into the casino and put, they have this little mistake on the parlay card. And if I knew guys literally, they would go in, they'd find a mistake in a parlay card, and they would put in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of 2-teamers and 3-teamers and 4-teamers and 5-teamers, and all little bets, $20. That's why they're all making the same bet over and over and over and over again to take advantage of the system without tracking any flags. And I know people that do that. I don't do that. That's just not the way I work.
No. Yeah. Shane says that would never be paid out in Europe / UK. David in Israel said, Teddy, online books cancel those bets every single time. So yeah, just right, like what you said. And on the topic of BetMGM this morning, Teddy, I don't know if you heard, but I retweeted a bunch of times. It was announced that BetMGM and the Denver Broncos agreed to a multi-year sports betting partnership, which is the Raiders' rivals. So, but it's okay. So BetMGM and MGM Resorts will provide a premium fan experience, including a lounge at the Mile High Stadium, VIP travel packages, super cool. This kind of leads me into the next point. PointsBet USA and the Detroit Tigers partnership. The MLB officially authorized PointsBet to be their official gaming operator. So this is basically just a sponsorship, and basically PointsBet gets their name at Comerica Field. So what does this mean for the MLB and NFL and sports betting and sports betting media going forward? Is this like a good first step?
Yeah. It's a great first. I mean, look, the fact that a sports book is advertising and is now the official, we have the official sportsbook of the Detroit Tigers and the official sportsbook of the Denver Broncos, doesn't mean you have to bet at that sportsbook. What it means is that it's an additional revenue source for the teams, which is what, the NFL figured, hey, we can get revenue from this. MLB, hey, we can get revenue from this. But in terms of its practicality for bettors, it doesn't mean the majority of that's it's a sponsorship deal. You can still bet wherever the hell you want. Maybe you get to go into a cool fan lounge somewhere at one of the stadiums. But it's just more integration between bettors and books and leagues, and that's fine by me. I have no problems with that whatsoever. And it's interesting news. They put out a press release, and that's why it's getting picked up. But in terms of its practical application, it's no practical application.
Yeah.
It just means the books
more
are
of
getting paid, or the teams are getting paid by the book, and I do think it's cool that we'll see advertising, sports betting advertising that we haven't seen in the past.
I currently am watching Premier League soccer, and which I never do, but I see Bet365 ads on there, and I never watch soccer, so this is new. I knew, of course, sports betting was big in the UK and in Europe and stuff, but I mean, although it's still taboo, it's still so big there and so, I guess, welcomed, I guess.
It's more integrated in society. Sports betting, we've always been, for my whole career, you're on the outside and trying to look in, and trying to dig your way in to the mainstream. And this is just mainstreaming it, and it's mainstreaming it quickly. So I view it as a positive sign. And again, it doesn't hurt anyone, doesn't help anyone, but it's a further integration of sports betting in the leagues and all of that. And it's certainly not a bad thing. It's fine.
Yeah, definitely not. All right, so next one, I know you're fired up about this. William Hill taking over El Dorado and Caesars Sportsbook. From our buddies at Gaming Today, I was able to obtain all this information here. So the Nevada Gaming Control Board and Gaming Commission has approved William Hill to operate sportsbooks at El Dorado Resorts and Caesars Entertainment. This merger includes 150 retail locations across 9 states. That's a lot. That's everything combined. So what are your thoughts on this merger?
Okay, so regardless of your feelings about William Hill, all right, I know there are bettors out there that love William Hill. There are bettors out there that hate William Hill. William Hill certainly doesn't cater to the sharp betting audience. What is I'm not happy. This isn't one that I'm doing. And my world is about outs, okay? How many outs I can, and that's why I moved to Las Vegas. I don't want to bet with one bookie. I don't want to bet with 2 bookies. I want to be able to go up and down the strip and have as many outs as I could, as many outs as there were, and multiple sports books to be able to line shop. We talk about how outs. Why? I want the half point here. I want the half point there. This book is going to give me a better comp. That book's going to give me a bigger limit. This book is going to be better for my WNBA totals, and that book's going to be better for my MLB to sides. I mean, the diversity of books is nothing but good news for bettors over the course of the last year. And there aren't that many books that really cater to the wise guy bettor, the professional bettor.
Right.
There aren't many. So the books that will take a wager and won't cut your limits and will lose and won't cut your limits, those books, we respect the hell out of those books. And we also have friends that work over there. We have people that we respect at Caesars and we like at Caesars, and good bookmakers and good odds makers and good people that are now, going to be looking for work. But the biggest concern for me, and again, it is what it is. We're not going to change it. Gaming has done it. But we already lost Canner. We lost CG, and now we're losing Caesars in the span of a year. And that's two significant wise guy books with big limits and willing to take opinions and willing to take bets. And, when we lost Canner, I'm like, I don't like this. When we lost Caesars now, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. It's, Caesars was big. And the difference between Caesars now and Caesars 10 years ago, I mean, Caesars was really becoming a place that loved the wise guy action, and a lot of unique props they were offering. They were really putting an enormous amount of effort into making Caesars into one of the elite books and a nationwide brand. I was stunned this happened. And I'm not happy about it. But I mean, there's nothing we're going to do about it. It is what it is.
Okay. Couldn't you argue though that, I mean, being a sportsbook, it's a business, so I mean, they have the right to turn down the sharp bets and the wise guys.
Of course, yeah, they do. I don't disagree with that. That said,
but like you said, more options for us as bettors.
I want the books that don't make that decision. Caesars wasn't shutting people down. CG wasn't shutting people down.
Right.
They weren't lowering limits. They were like, well, we're going to take the wise guy info and make better lines from it. They use the Pinnacle model. But you bet as much as you want. We're going to have the best lines. We're going to have the tightest lines out there. But Caesars and Canner were both books that were very comfortable with wise guy wagers, and William Hill isn't comfortable with that.
Yeah,
I'm putting it mildly.
All right. Yes, mild indeed is how you're putting it. All right. I think we're running out of time to answer the rest of the questions. Teddy, we got like a couple more questions on YouTube, but I'm just going to move it to next week so we have some.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I mean, look, this is interesting. This is fun. And I like it because it's kind of a little bit out of left field. I don't know what's coming. There's some, I get to talk about, Missouri football and
the Chiefs.
Yeah. It's just, I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun. Send questions. I mean, let's do it again next week. If you guys have questions, just shoot them and we'll answer them. I'll do the best I can to give you a decent answer.
Let's do it. Okay.
What is it, at Minty Bets on Twitter or at Teddy_covers?
At Minty Bets, at Teddy_covers, or at WagerTalk on Instagram or on Twitter. We're all on Twitter, so let's do that instead. I got David's question, Shane's question from earlier, and also Raul's question. So, guys, I'll answer those next week. Thank you so much for joining us. And, Teddy, thank you so much for your thoughts and taking the time to answer all those questions.
It's fun, Minty. And, again, this is all – we're going to have sports back in a couple of weeks, and then the time frame changes. But between here and there, I'm happy to do it. It's and it's fun and interesting. And that's,
this is fun.
Considering what the last 4 months have been, I'll take fun and interesting any day of the week.
Yes, absolutely. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining us. Don't forget to join us next week, Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.